Thank you, Mary Ann, for speaking up and saying you wanted to sing that.
Yes.
That was perfect. So let's take a few minutes of settling in and quiet. So let's all get comfortable in our seats, whatever that means to you. Let that chair support you. Let yourself just lean and fall right into that chair. We know the earth is supporting the chair is supporting you. And let's breathe. Releasing our busyness. And in again. And releasing any buzzing thoughts that we still have. And one more time in. And out. And this morning we acknowledge and we affirm divine understanding. And we acknowledge, we know that divine understanding, just as in the song, is part intellect, part that sort of intellectual understanding and knowing, and part of understanding lies in the heart. Divine understanding, understanding in a deeper way what's going on with us and what's going on around us and what that means and how we can be in that energy, accepting and moving in the flow. So as we focus on that divine energy that supports divine understanding, let's take this notion of understanding both with the intellect and with the heart into a couple of minutes of silence. As we return to this place and time, we bring with us the peace, the calm, the serenity, and the deep knowing of the place we just were. And we know we can call on this peace and serenity at any time. We give thanks for divine understanding in our lives, and we give thanks for friends in our lives. And with that we say, Amen. Amen. He's pointing over here.
Inside.
Inside.
Corner.
I can see first this morning. Don't want to make it too easy for Mommy. So the title of my talk today is What's Understanding Got to Do with It? And because we're kind of experimenting with a Friendship Sunday, another way to think about this title is What's Understanding Got to Do with Friendship? Right? We can kind of pull these concepts together. So I went to the Bible and I looked and I said, well, what does the Bible say about friendship? Let's start there. So in Proverbs we see some friends play at friendship, but a true friend sticks closer than one's nearest kin. Right? And don't we sometimes acknowledge the family of our own creation? Right? And this is the kind of thing that we're talking about, is who are those people in our lives who are really close with us? And we roll right together, friends and family, and it all kind of becomes the same thing. True friend sticks closer than one's nearest kin. And then I came across this nice little poem. Faithful friends are a sturdy shelter. Whoever finds one has found a treasure. Faithful friends are beyond price. No amount can balance their worth. And isn't that right? When we think about the friends in our lives and how they've been with us through our journeys, and friends change too, I acknowledge that. I've had friends 20 or 30 years ago that, you know what, our lives evolved and they evolved differently, and we're on different paths now. And those friends may not be so much in my life as they once were. Yet at the time they were a treasure, and the memories of that are a treasure. And the impact they had on my life stays with me, whether there's an active friendship in this moment or not. So we give thanks for what is at the moment it is, right? And we give thanks and acknowledge the friends who are in our lives now, and also acknowledge the friends who maybe aren't as active in our lives right now, but still had an impact on who we are. And then I saw this: friendship is love with understanding. Isn't that nice? Friendship is love with understanding. Because if we're going to stay friends with anybody for very long, there better be a nugget of understanding there, right? Because friendship does not always mean that we agree. But we figure out how not to agree and still be there for one another as friends. So here's another little poem. You are friendly, kind, and caring, sensitive, loyal, and understanding. Humorous, fun, secure, and true, always there. That yes, that's you. And that's a more humorous look at what a friend is.
It's an actual cat. It's an actual cat.
I don't know how people prepare talks before Google. I really don't know. I'm kind of at a loss. How did I teach 10, 15, 20 years ago without Google to help me? But when I first looked at this picture, I didn't see, like some of you, I didn't see the cat.
No.
But humorous, fun, secure, and true, always there. Yes, that's you. And sometimes as friends, we kind of try to fit in. And when we go along for the sake of the friendship. And that works too, right? And we find ways to be true to ourselves and to be able to be a loving and loyal companion. Now, I'm sure some of you saw this story. What was this story? A couple months ago? I believe it hit the national news even, about Mr. G. And Mr. G was a goat. And he was found in an animal hoarder property. So there were lots of animals at this location that weren't being cared for well. So who knows this story? Just a few of you. Okay. So they took these animals and they kind of split them up and they found homes for these animals because there were lots of different kinds of animals there. And Mr. G went to a certain property, and that's what Mr. G did for days. Didn't want to drink, didn't want to eat, all depressed. And somewhere along the line, maybe it was someone who was at this property said, Mr. G was really good friends with Jellybean the donkey. And Jellybean the donkey had gone somewhere else. So they contacted who was the people who were caring for Jellybean at the time, and they brought Jellybean to see Mr. G. Now, I'm looking at that going, there is purpose in that donkey's step, right? There is purpose in that donkey's step, headed toward Mr. G. And if we ever think, right, that friendship is not important in our own lives, or companionship is not important even to the animals in our lives, we had better think again. This was such an amazing demonstration of the bond between these two animals. Within the hour, I think, Mr. G went to the food dish, and there they were, in their buddy space, being together. So I think sometimes we maybe don't give as much credit to the friendships in our lives as we could. We're busy. I know, we're all, even when we retire, does it get any less busy? No.
Busier.
Busier? somehow it's busier. Okay? But continuing to stay in touch with who's important to us and how are they important to us, and how can we maintain and continue to grow those relationships. So that story about Jelly Bean and Mr. G is just fantastic, I think. So I thought we might bring Snoopy in today, and I knew Alex was going to be here, so I thought, well, I'm going to make a little special effort to make sure whatever young person is watching this is involved. So here we have Snoopy exploring the perfect friend. Okay? So intellectually, full of advice, eyes, happy to see you, ears, ready to listen, loves to share a smile, available to lean on, and good for holding and helping, a warm spot, and feet there for standing by your side. Now, these are actually synonyms for friendship. No, understand, I'm sorry, I'm getting this backwards now. These are synonyms for understanding. Okay, so we can start to see a picture here of how understanding intersects with friendship. These are synonyms for understanding. Thoughtful, compassionate. I always, I need to look at these after I get here because that computer does things to my slides. But we all know what it says. Sensitive, considerate, kind, tolerant, patient, and merciful. And forgiving. Friendship. Okay, so let's just stay with Snoopy and Charlie Brown for a minute. There we are. Friendship and understanding. And isn't that sometimes all you need from a friend? Just kind of be in the same space with me. Hold this space with me. You don't have to entertain me. I don't have to entertain you.
Oh gosh.
Or we need someone to share an activity and just go for it. Years ago, we lived in Menominee, Wisconsin at the time, and the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi came to the university there and gave a talk. And he remembered a time when he had an illness that required him to fast for a week. He just really needed to clean out his system. And they lived in an extended family house, and his grandfather, Mahatma Gandhi, was in the same house with him. And he recalled that his grandfather fasted for the same 7 days that he did. Because his belief was so strong that I cannot feel what you feel, I cannot really support you, really understand you, really be with you, unless I am doing what you are doing in times of challenge. That has stayed with me all these years. What a commitment to that companionship, that understanding. And so this to me was a little, something of a depiction of that. Be there with me. Sometimes we see someone who's going through cancer treatment, who's going through chemotherapy, and all the hair is gone. And there you see them with the buddy, right? I know I've seen little boys and little girls with their little girlfriend or their little boyfriend who shave their head to be in companionship with them. So we can think about that. We can think about who do we know that might really need us to be in companionship with them in a different kind of way. And I think it gives us courage too. When we need a certain kind of companionship, we get to ask for that. We get to ask for that from our friends. Will you be there with me in this way? And that's what a lot of prayer is about, really. Is saying, this is where I am, this is what I need prayer support for. Will you be there with me in this way? And so right now I'm just going to invite people again. We have a prayer box in the back. We have prayer slips. On the fourth Sunday of every month, we do a little power prayer up here in the corner. We've only done that for 2 months. I think the first month there were 4 or 5 of us in the corner, and last month there were 9 or 10 of us in the corner. To maintain that prayer consciousness and be open when we need that, when we need that kind of support from our unity community. Now these are synonyms for friendship. Comradeship, companionship, fellowship, closeness, affinity, being drawn toward, rapport, understanding, and harmony. So don't we see a lot of similarity between these synonyms for friendship and synonyms for understanding? Boy, there's really not a whole lot of difference there. So I went to the Bible again because I was thinking, what about Jesus and friendship? When was Jesus with friends? I found this in John 15, and this is actually something that he said during the Last Supper. No longer do I call you servants, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. Jesus is saying, I've told you everything I know. I have shared with you my experiences of communicating and interacting with this Holy Father, with this divine Spirit. I've shared all of that with you. And because of that, I now call you my friends. So to me, there's a message there from Jesus saying, you know what? If we want to develop strong friendships, we need to be open and we need to share. And we need to let people know what's going on with us in order to truly call people friends. Here's another kind of piece. When Job's 3 friends heard of the troubles that had come upon him, each of them set out from his home. They made an appointment together. So the 3 friends got together and said, we're going to go and visit Job. They sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights. And there's another one of those examples, like the example with Mahatma Gandhi and his grandson. They sat with him. They just sat with him. They didn't try to fix it. They didn't try to intellectualize it. They just sat with him. And then as I thought about this, I thought, yeah, we need people to sit with us and hold the space with us in times of challenge and trial and tribulation. But don't we need that in our happy times too? Or want that in our happy times? And I came across this wonderful photo that exemplified that for me. So, we also want to share those happy times and have people around us and with us who we can bring into those experiences. Oops, I'm gonna hold on to that one for a minute. So I'm also still sitting there with my Bible and with my computer going, well, I want to know more about Jesus and friends. Who were Jesus' best friends? So I actually Googled, who were Jesus' best friends? And I came into one of these sites where people just gave their responses, right? So I see Lazarus. Someone said Lazarus. Lazarus was the person who, when Jesus found out he had died, shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. Okay? So Lazarus was definitely a good friend of Jesus, as were Lazarus' sisters, Martha and Mary. Okay, some other people said, well, James and John were actually Jesus' cousins, and they were brothers, and Peter were his very close friends, because he brought these 3 guys with him into some situations that he didn't bring the other disciples with him. So we have James and John and Peter were distinguished as being somewhat closer friends to Jesus. And then there was the entry that said, we're all Jesus' friends, silly. Isn't it? Everyone is Jesus' friend. Jesus loves everybody. And I just had to laugh when I read that. Because, there's another way to think about who's Jesus' best friends. Hey, we all get to be best friends with the divine. We all get to be in union, one with our own divinity. And we can think of Jesus as a representation of that. So we have a biblical character. We have Jesus acknowledging friendship with all of the disciples and also acting on some very special situations of friendship. There were also, I found a couple of sites that talked about Mary Magdalene and how often she shows up in the New Testament as being right along there when Jesus is traveling through the country, right? And there's Mary Magdalene doing something, talking about something, helping him in some way. So there's another friend. So we can see some very nice examples where Jesus is concerned regarding friendship, and we see examples as well throughout the Bible. Well, then I went to my favorite book on the 12 powers, which says, the awakening of the power of understanding starts with questioning the old ways of thinking that may have been taken for granted. And now we move a little deeper into the concept of understanding, to this divine understanding, the questioning. Charlotte talked about the religion and spirituality she grew up in. You'd still be there if you didn't question, right? Think about your own lives. Where would you be if you didn't engage in some questioning about what you believe, about what you're about what your life is about? So Winifred Wilkinson Hossman says it starts with questioning old ways of thinking. And that's part of our spirituality too, is questioning, what do we believe? What do I believe? Is that still working for me? Is it time for me to rethink a little bit what I believe? So in this same book, we find these looks at understanding. Understanding is the faculty which puts feet under our prayers and gives our spiritual activity something to stand on. Because understanding tells you why. And if I don't know why I'm doing something, I don't have the strength. I don't have the fortitude to stay with it. So divine understanding puts feet under my prayers. It says, Lynnette, you know this and you get it well enough to do something about it. And if I'm in that place, my next place is the wisdom of knowing what to do. How are my feet going to move? It knows why. I just said that. It perceives the operation of spiritual laws. But let me add right away that divine understanding, she says, does not come with force. It comes with a dedicated desire and interest. So back in Mark Welch's song, where it talks about divine understanding, and first the intellect and then the love. And she says the same thing, really, here. But she also says, don't get all bent out of shape about it. When we're trying to get to that deeper understanding of something that's going on in our lives, we can get really caught up in it, right? Why? What? How come? I gotta understand this. I gotta know this. And she's saying, calm down. Relax. Know that you are doing the questioning. And once you start to ask the question, why do I believe this? Why do I feel this way? The answers will begin to come. And we all know we learn better when we relax. There's been a lot of educational research done on that. That when kids or adults are sitting in a classroom all uptight, the brain can't absorb. We don't learn well. So what we need to do with divine understanding, we get to ask the question. And then we get to breathe. And go, okay, I've asked the question. I am now open to discovering answers. So it does not come with force, it comes with dedicated desire and interest. And we may need to ask more than one time, right? I still don't see it, I still don't get it, I still don't understand it, I'm still open. I'm still open. I'm still questioning, I'm still open. Perceiving the operation of spiritual laws. How many times don't we in our lives and in the world go, why would that be happening? Right? And we see a lot of stuff going on around us in the world right now. Why would that be happening? And sometimes we just need to sit without an answer. Just need to sit without an answer and stay open to discovering that answer. And this morning I was watching again CBS Sunday Morning, and there was a wonderful story, and it's been on the news elsewhere this week. Angelina is in the process of making a movie about this. Do you remember his name, Betty? I know his first name's Louis. He was a World War II veteran. And Zamperini. There you go, Zamperini. His story about being adrift in a rubber life raft for 47 days, being captured by the Japanese, and as the story said, went from bad to worse, was held in a camp and tortured and lived miserably, I think, for 2 years, I think it was. And after that, he was depressed, he went to alcohol, his life was spiraling downward. His wife discovered Billy Graham. You know, I remember as a kid, we used to watch Billy Graham in the living room, we used to watch on television. And so he went to a Billy Graham evangelist meeting with his wife, and his life began to turn around. And he moved toward understanding. He moved toward divine, that's all it can be, right? Is divine understanding, because the place he got to is he wanted to go and let his Japanese captors know that he forgave them. Isn't that amazing? So he did. He went back to Japan and he met with a room full of Japanese prison guards. And we can gather that at least some of these were the guards that held him, or they were at the camp where he was. And he let them all know. He said he looked them in the eyes and told them he forgave them. And he said from that day his life absolutely turned around. He said the worst thing we can do is carry around blame in our hearts. We heal when we forgive. Now, wow. Divine understanding, perceiving the operation of spiritual laws. He didn't go to understanding why. He didn't go to a big thing about, well, this is why this all happened. But for him, the spiritual law was learning to forgive. That was his understanding of spiritual law, learning to forgive in the deepest possible way. So this is divine understanding. Asking why, being open to answers, and continuing to be open to answers. And then I have to close with this wonderful picture that just said to me, there's some kind of divine understanding going on here, right? Between this little boy and this lion. Isn't that something, what you see in that picture?
Wow.
So we can say understanding has everything to do with it. It has everything to do with how we live our lives, how we understand our lives, how we interact with the people around us, our spiritual lives. There is a knowing that's going on in this picture that is beyond any kind of intellectual understanding, right? So that bond of intellectual and affection is where we go with our divine understanding. So thank you very much.